Everybody, good morning, good afternoon, depending on the country you are. This is my name is Igor Anguren. I'm responsible of internationalization at Clima, partner of the EU Water Project. This is the third webinar of a series of webinars addressing the topics of internationalization of SMEs, starting from internationalization in general. Second one was about Africa. This is about Latin America. Just a few words to say. Remember, this webinar is going to be recorded in order to disseminate later. For the attendees, please switch off cameras and mics. All questions should be addressed via chat for us to ask the panelists. Okay, and that's all. And just I'm going to give floor to Thelma from France Water team, who is going to present the project, and the other panelists. Thelma, up to you.
Yes, thank you, Igor. So welcome everyone. As Igor said, this is our third capacity building webinar on how to go international in Latin America. And we organize this webinar in the framework of the EU Water for ISD project. As he quickly mentioned, but just because it's written, I'm going to say it another time. If you can write your name and organization in the participants list, you can use the Q&A section for questions you'd like to ask to the speakers. We'll have a moment at the end of the webinar to answer them. And the chat is please only for technical issues or to share your contact information. This webinar will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel. So in today's agenda, we already had the welcoming words from Igor Aranguren from Clima. I will present the EU Water for ISD project, and just so you can have an overview of what we're going to talk about, we will then have a presentation of the opportunities in Latin America for the water sector by Bram Williams, who was the director of the CCA, Water Competence Center in Peru. Then we will go over how to do business in Latin America with Cesar Mauricio Ortega Vargas, who's head of the Logistic and Foreign Trade Unit in the National Chamber of Commerce from Bolivia. We'll follow a political and economic framework for the water sector in Latin America presented by Kevin Guzman-Byrne, Business Development Manager at Track Global Solutions. Finally, a feedback, a business experiences in Latin America from Jose Tercera, from Key Account Manager at Bunt Planet, sorry, for the mispronunciation I might have done. And then we'll follow a Q&A session. Again, please write your questions in the Q&A section so we can answer them at the end of the webinar. So, as we said, this webinar is organized in the framework of EU Water for ISD. You would be right to ask what is EU Water for ISD. It's quite a long name, standing for European Water Smart Initiative for Fostering International Sustainable Development. Quite long, as we said. In other words, what we are is a European partnership to enable water smart solutions entering the sustainable territorial development market in emerging countries. In other words, again, we are helping European SMEs to develop their water smart solutions and to export them and adapt them in the emerging countries we are targeting. This project is co-funded by the COSME program from the European Union. And we are 5 partners actively working in it. Aclima from Spain with Igor, present here. France Water Team with myself. Eco-Alliance from Germany, and CREA from Czech Republic, Czechia now, and Greece Energy Cluster from Bulgaria. What are the markets we are targeting? So we are targeting 2 main areas, Eastern Africa and Latin America. In Eastern Africa, we are focusing on Kenya and Uganda, and in Latin America, in Bolivia and Peru. So you might understand that in today's webinar, though we will sometime address general questions on Latin America, it is normal that it will be more focused on Bolivia and Peru, since those are the 2 countries we are targeting. So we will have a more specific approach on these questions. How do we help SMEs going international, and how do we help our SMEs to develop their water smart solution and to export it? Well, we do this through 4 main tools. The first one is through an important strategic market information. We have an information bulletin that is monthly sent We did market studies for each of the target countries. We have a public procurement alert system also sent monthly. And all of this information is key to understanding those markets, to successfully export to them, to understand a bit what's going on, and to have access to this key information. The second tool we have is helping through capacity building actions. We do this through individual or group training, such as this one, but also mentoring and coaching on export issues. You can also, if you are an SME, address yourself directly to the cluster that you are part of from the 5 partners to ask for a bit of a more specific coaching or mentoring experience. We also do this through trade opportunities. We will implement shortly, actually, around end of June, a marketplace. This marketplace will be a place where you can exchange when you are an European SMEs with foreign actors in the water sector, present your solutions, and gain access to public procurement alert or to offers that might interest you. We also do this through missions, either trade missions or B2B meetings, either in the European Union or outside of it. For instance, next week we will be hosting a trade missions in Bolivia on the 30th, 31st, and 1st of June with a couple of European SMEs that subscribe to the mission. We will have other ones and we'll let you know about it. What's really interesting is that we also provide financial support here, up to 1,500 euros per SME to gain access to this opportunity. And as I said, meeting in the European Union with matchmaking events during important fairs. The next one will be during Polytech Lyon in October, and we will arrange a matchmaking event for our SMEs to be able to interact with key actors. And what could be maybe the most interesting aspect of it for the SMEs is the financial opportunities. This is currently a work in progress. We will host a private investment event around the end of the project in 2024. And we will shortly publish also a European Union financial opportunities guide, which will really go over all the kind of support you can have access to and what are all the opportunities that could be interesting for you when you are a European SME would like to access such opportunities. So that's a bit all on the EU Water for ISD project if you want to keep it short on what we are doing. But I would strongly advise you to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter to really have updated information on what we are doing, where we are doing it, how it is done, what kind of financial support you can get, or what kind of opportunities you can have access to. You also have a QR code that you can scan to gain access to our newsletter. It's published every 6 months, so it will not be polluting your email box, but you will have a review of everything that has been done. And you can also access the information bulletin and public procurement alerts every month. Again, you have all the 5 partners of the project, but we thank all of them for the active work in it. And if you have any question, feel free to contact us. You have my email here, my phone number, and you have all of our informations. The Q&A section can also be used to answer questions more generally on the project, even though we will maybe answer it later on today. So that's it on my side. I will now leave the floor to Bram Williams to present us the opportunities in Latin America in the water sector.
Okay, thank you very much, Thelma. Good morning here, good afternoon over there on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. My name is Bram Williams. I am the head of the Water Competence Center. And today I will be presenting a short overview of market opportunities in Latin America, but more specifically in Peru. Just to show you, this is what I will talk about. Some few words about the organization I lead. Really a snapshot about the water sector in Latin America, more details about Peru, and I will end my presentation with one opportunity that exists, which is the Expo One Sustainability Expo we organize every year with several actors from the water sector and sustainability sector here in Peru. So the CCA, Water Competence Center, Centro de Competencias del Agua, is a non-profit research organization founded in 2014. And we developed several projects within what we call programs. We do research, innovation, knowledge exchange and transfer, education, and also we foster a lot of science policy dialogues between different actors surrounding water and sustainability problems. We work as an organization. We articulate a network with which we work in specific, really targeted projects oriented towards giving technical and scientific support to governmental organizations, which can be ministries or regional governments or local governments or water utilities and so on. Our focus is to work at a basin scale. We started our research basically in the highlands. So our area of work was mainly above 3,500 meters, where we study the ecosystem services of different ecosystems with water regulating functionality. We have been also developing projects surrounding acidification of water sources in Peru. In addition to mining activities, we do have natural sources of acidification due to glacial retreat, for instance, because of the geology that's being exposed. We have been also developing technological adaptations or innovations for rural sanitation. And we did also some projects on designing resilient cities. So how, with what we have already there, how can we improve, maximize the well-being of people, taking into account the incorporation of natural infrastructure. Now I will go on to basically a snapshot of what the water sector is in Latin America, what are the challenges, which is very representative for Peru. So generally speaking, if we take this information from the Caja Andina de Fomento, the CAF, Peru is, Latin America has a lot of water, is a region with 1/3 of the world's freshwater resources, which is approximately, we're talking about 23 cubic kilometer per person per year, but a big challenge is that this is very unevenly distributed. So that's a big challenge we have to take into account. The other aspect is in what regards the closing of the gap to access to water and sanitation services. We need, as a region, to spend around 0.3 of the gross domestic product until 2030, because if we want to achieve the targets, no. Only 50% of the municipalities have wastewater treatment plants, and from this around 40% have operating problems. Some of them are not operating at all. And this is also very important, there is a growing trend to involve the private sector to overcome the gap. So governments have failed so far in delivering these services. So there is a need more and more that the private sector has to be involved. Giving this general snapshot, I will go into the water market in Peru and tell you a bit about the challenges and opportunities. So first, let's have a look at how the region, how the country is distributed geographically in terms of water availability. So we do have the major part of the country is Amazon rainforest, where you have around more than 95% of the water resources, but only 12% of the population lives there. While at the highlands, which is around 30% of the territory, which is very varied, climatically speaking, and also in what regards the availability of water, 36% of the population lives there. While on the Pacific side, on the east-west, I always have to remember, so while on the western slope of the Andes, you have the coastal region, which is a desert. And there, more than 50%, 60% of the population is living there, and there is no rain at all. So a big challenge for Peru is the very inhomogeneous distribution of water. So 2% of the water resources, the freshwater resources, drains to the coast, to the Pacific coast, which is a desert. But we do have there around 60% of the population living there, and 80% of the gross domestic product is produced in these desert areas. So meaning that 6 of every 10 Peruvians lives along the coast. 8 of each $10 is produced there. In what regards the water distribution, according to the National Water Authority, 80% is located for agriculture. And here I have to mention that the biggest agro-export projects are located along the coast, which is a bit like contradictory, but it is because of several reasons, like accessibility, services, roads, ports, havens, airports, and so on. So 80% goes there. To the population, like 12%. Industry is consuming around 6%, minery is around 1%. But of course, these are average figures for the country. And if you go from region to region, this varies, can vary significantly. For instance, in the basins, the 3 basins where the city of Lima is located, which counts for 1/3 of the population, 80% of the water is used for domestic consumption. No? Here are some figures about evolution in what regards access to water services. We can see there is a general improvement, mainly in the cities. However, in the rural areas, the gaps are still important. Around 23% of the population do not have access. I mean, we were talking just about having a tap that you can get water from it. But if we look at the quality and the water quality, the figures are a bit less, are less optimistic than before. And if we look at the rural areas, only around 3% of the rural population is consuming safe water. We are only talking about water having enough amount of chlorine available. In what regards wastewater, then the figures are again low. For cities, it's of course much easier to install this infrastructure and to provide access, no? Because of scale economy, but in the rural areas, the situation is worse. And if we look at the performance of several water utilities, the majority, all water utilities in Peru are public. There's no private water utility. The biggest one is Sedapal with over 1 million of connections. If we look at how these companies are performing, we do see that Sedapal is the only one that is above the average. But if we go to smaller companies, their performance is going less and less well. This responds to several challenges. No, of course, we present a very unplanned and fast growth of cities and population centers, which is very, something we share in common with several countries around the region and also in other countries, in other continents. There's a growing, for instance, we need, if we want to achieve universal access to water and sanitation by 2030, no? The government has to spend around $27 billion in the coming, let's say, 7 years, which is a huge amount of money that has to be spent. There is a growing pressure on groundwater resources. This is basically for agriculture and population, as I mentioned. Big agro-export projects are located along the coast, which and they're the main and one of the important sources of water is groundwater. The water pollution by human and natural process, also a very important issue to address. Growing tension between communities of mining companies, I would say. Also with large-scale infrastructure development, there is also tensions between communities. Then natural phenomena like El Nino, we had a couple of months ago, but recently we had El Nino Costero, which is Nino, but that only happens in Peru. But now we are expecting a global Nino. And what is also very important, the slow reaction capacity of the government to deal with these challenges. Really, the public sector is really going at a pace that is much slower than what is required. However, there are some opportunities that are helping little by little to activate this big potential water market existing in Peru, because we're talking about the water market, $27 billion. Only in access to water. We are not talking about quality. So which are these opportunities, like the G2G mechanism, government-to-government mechanisms, for instance, for all the reconstruction of the northern side of Peru, which has been affected in 2017 by El Nino, there is a cooperation agreement between the Peruvian government and the government of UK. So we are playing all the contracts with the rules with the management team of the UK government. There is also a big push from the government to promote public-private partnerships. The investment portfolio is around $1.2 billion, which is now running, covering 12 regions. And this last mechanism, which is called investment for taxes, is that allows private companies to take charge of public investments in return to their taxes. This is very unique for the case of Peru. So more and more companies are becoming involved in this kind of mechanism. So they take over what the regional government or a local government should do in theory. So because the company, this is, for instance, a lot of mining companies are doing this to have a better social relationship with their areas of influence. And as we see, 15% of the total portfolio, investment portfolio, has been in water sanitation. So this, we are talking about the last 10 years, perhaps. No, it's about $268 million in investment done by private companies, which is working very well because a private company is more efficient. The way to contract other suppliers is much faster, and because this is something that is related to their prestige in the region, they are very following very closely to get the things done in an appropriate way. Finally, if you are interested in coming to Peru, so I will you can do it in the standard way. Come here, come to Peru, and knock a lot of doors, talk with a lot of people, and you can do this all in 3 days. This is what we have here, the biggest Water Expo and Sustainability Expo in Peru, which we organize as CCA, but I will tell you, I will show you who are our partners. So this event brings together several actors from the water sector and the sustainability sector. So there are booths, there are round tables, there are conferences, there are B2B meetings, everything that you need and you expect from an international quality expo. This year, it will take from October the 4th to the 6th. And here's some pictures. So who are our partners? Are the major players of the water sector in Peru. So we do have the Ministry of Housing, Construction and Sanitation. That's the entity that provides all the regulatory, the laws and the norms regarding water and sanitation, but also the big programs, the investment programs. We do have the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation, Ministry of Environment, the National Water Authority, the association that groups the 15 major water utilities of Peru, about the biggest water company here, Otas, and so on. Thank you very much for this invitation. Here some links you can click on. You will get more information, and if you want, we can establish contact and so on. Please write me an email. This is my email address. Thank you very much and good day.
Thank you very much, Bram, for this detailed presentation. That was really interesting, and I think Expo Agua Peru is a good way to start doing business in Latin America. And speaking of doing business, we will now move over to Cesar Mauricio Ortega Vargas' presentation on how to do business in Latin America, with obviously a perspective from the National Chamber of Commerce in Bolivia.
Okay, good morning to all of us. Good morning in Europe and good morning in Latin America. My name is Mauricio Ortega, and I will present the how to do business in Latin America since pandemic period that we have in the world. In the first part of the presentation, I will talk about economic aspects. On the second one, I will talk about the new reality that we are living now. And in the third part, we will talk about conclusions. The thing is that I want to review the most important economic variables in the region that will give you a picture of the region. In Latin America and Caribbean, we have a total population that reaches 664,000 people, no? In 2023. The extreme poverty, we have to talk about this. 201 million people did not have sufficient income to cover their basic needs. And of those, 80 million lacked the resources to purchase a basic food basket. So the extreme poverty is a big problem here in Latin America. When we talk about inflation, it's expected to decrease to 5% in 2023, after registering 7.9% in 2022. So, well, except in Argentina, that Argentina is in a special situation in Latin America. No, when we talk about the gross domestic product, we have to say that the increase was 3.8% in 2022, the last year. No? But when we talk about the exports, for example, in Latin America, we've been exporting two kinds of products: basic products and manufactured products. The total amount that we export in the last year was $1.1 billion, 621,000 in basic products and $525 million in manufactured products. So as you can see, we export food, we export raw materials basically. But when we talk about the situation that we lived in Latin America, we have to say that Latin America and Caribbean showed relative resilience in the face of increased debt stress, inflation, and uncertainty surrounding Russia's war in Ukraine, a problem that hit us as a continent. In general terms, income and employment levels recovered after the pandemic, and the markets remain moderately optimistic regarding the short term. When we talk about the growth prospects for 2023 have been declining steadily over the past 6 months to 1.3%. For the year 2024, this figure is 2.4%, forecasting the same percentage for 2025. When we address educational issues, the impact on the region of the pandemic forced many countries to take reactive actions regarding virtuality. We were not prepared. The region was not ready for the virtual classes. Platforms were improvised, and this effect and currently has an impact on the school performance because many people was not used to have a virtual meeting, for example, but now is part of our lives. When we talk about informality levels are also cause of concern. Costly regulations have forced most companies to remain informal, limiting their access to financing. Labor markets are also dominated by informality, which increased from 56.7% before the pandemic to 63.4% in 2021. So many companies closed, many companies disappeared, but they started a new business, and we will see what kind of business they start. So when we talk about migration, for example, when we talk about migration, we have to say that this region is currently undergoing the worst migration crisis in the history. In addition, the traditional flows from Central America and Mexico to the United States, Venezuela and Haiti have recently experienced a significant outflow of people. Around 7.5 million Venezuelans have left their country since 2015, while 1.7 million Haitians are abroad, adding to the 2 million internally displaced persons. So if you come to Latin America, you can see Venezuelan people in Peru, in Chile, in Bolivia. They are in the streets asking for money. So it's a very big problem for us. In this context, when we talk about logistics, for example, this issue becomes a differentiating factor for the region, and more so in countries that we don't have access to the sea. For example, Bolivia. Bolivia does not have a port, a seaport. We don't have port. We have to go to Chile to make exports or make imports, for example. So we present the highest cost in logistics. We represent for each 100 Bolivians, for example, that we export, 18 represents the logistic costs. So we have the highest in the region. No, even the average of the region, because it's 14%, but we are the highest in the region. So it's difficult for Bolivia, for example, export or import. When we talk about the new reality, we have to talk about the business opportunities in the region and the prospects. When we talk about estimate average growth rate in this year, for the region, we're estimating to have 1.3% of growth rate. But when we talk about individually, for example, when we talk about South America will present a 1% growth rate. Central America, 3%, Mexico, 1.1%, and the Caribbean, 3.3%. So we are trying to reactivate our economy after pandemic. So what are the key political priorities for Latin America? They should be, for example, number one, work to achieve the greatest economic reactivation possible, creating employment and boosting labor markets. We should focus on reducing the inflation and limiting increases in the cost of living. Design a tax reform to improve tax collection and tax revenue, as well as protect the most vulnerable groups in the region with specialty adapted social and employment policies. And finally, we have to create the basis of universal health services, in addition to well-designed social protection policies. This is what we should do to reactivate the economy. But we also have opportunities in the region. For example, in Latin America and Caribbean, we have a new form of production, digital transformation, and the explosion of opportunities in exports of modern services. Services is the key, because in Latin America, we're used to export products, food, natural gas, raw materials, but now we have to focus on export services. And we have now electronic commerce, for example, fintech, edutech. This is what we have to focus on now. And we are focusing also in global productive reactivation, reconfigures the supply chain. The supply chain is key to our country. Latin America has great energy potential, traditional, for example, hydrocarbons, and non-traditional, wind, solar, energy produced by water, hydroelectrics, and also we have a strong recovery of tourism in the region, because, as you know, the tourism in the world was the most hit sector by the pandemic. We closed countries. We could not travel to other countries. So the tourism was was a very difficult time. And finally, the work on deepening of regional integration frameworks is put on the table once again. So we have to work on this integration. Reactivate maybe Mercosur, Andean community. So we have to focus on that. When we talk about regional indicators, and according to Statista, which is a specialist in statistics, they consider GDP, population, economic strength, infrastructure, education, and standard of living to determine that Sao Paulo in Brazil is the best city to do business, actually, nowadays in Latin America. Buenos Aires, Argentina, Santiago, Chile, Montevideo, Uruguay, and City of Mexico in Mexico. These are the main cities to do business in Latin America. When we talk about the business climate indicator in Latin America, according to Getulio Vargas Foundation, we found that Paraguay is the first country to do business. Uruguay, Mexico, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and at last, Bolivia. According to Bloomberg, when we talk about economic stability, we can say that Peru is the best economy that has the best stability in the region. Chile, Colombia, Argentina, and Panama. No, and when we talk about when we monitor global entrepreneurship monitor, we can say that Colombia is the first country. We have many startups in Colombia, in Chile, Mexico, Uruguay, and Guatemala. So as you can see, this is the best places to do business in Latin America in these days. No, so we are having big little problems in economy, since, for example, in Bolivia we don't have dollars here in Bolivia, or Venezuela, or Argentina, has problems with this currency. But we have to say some final considerations. We have to establish that the pandemic hit Latin America countries hard, very hard. We were not prepared to face that pandemic in any way. There are a fairly conservative growth prospects for the region. Actions must be worked on for a quick economy reactivation. And we have to say that the world production is reactivated, and with it, the export of raw materials. The region, according to the indicators presented, shows interesting growth prospects. So if you in Europe want to come to Latin America, you have to go to the cities and also visit Bolivia. We have interesting aspects in tourism, in economy, so we can meet these opportunities here in Bolivia. Thank you very much. This was my presentation, so thank you very much.
Sorry, couldn't find my mic. Thank you very much, Mauricio, for this presentation. It was really interesting indeed, and always good to know that you can count on the National Chamber of Commerce to also help you when you need to do business. For instance, during our trade mission in Bolivia next week, we will have a huge B2B event on our first day, and I believe it's always a good way to encounter with key actors in the country. Now we can move on and take a little bit of a perspective on the political and economic framework for the water sector in Latin America with a presentation by Kevin Guzman from Track Global Solutions.
Hi, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, where you are. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, well then let's go. Well, first, my name is Kevin Guzman. I'm Business Development Manager for Track Global Solutions. I'll talk a bit about us at the end of the presentation. But let's say for an introduction that we've been helping the trade between America and Europe for the last 10 years. So we've helped many companies from a lot of sectors to do business all around Europe and America. So that's why we think we can give a perspective, hopefully interesting for you, about how is this market and how you can get into it. I'm sorry, so some of the ideas I'm going to share have already been shared by the other panelists, but I hope I have some new ideas for you. So first of all, let's begin having a look through the economic and political situation of the region. Well, the regional average growth estimations for 2023 for the region are to have a growth of 1.3%, which means there's going to be a growth slowdown from the years before. But anyway, there's some significant variation within the markets. So if we double click into the data, we can see that, for example, Central America is going to grow at 3.0%, or the Caribbean 3.3%. But instead, some South America is going to be 1.0, or the Central America and Mexico together 1.6. So anyway, there's, as I said, some significant variations within the markets, and well, some of the countries are going to behave worse than this data said at the beginning of the year, like Argentina, and others are going to do better, like Chile. But some are going to do much better, like Brazil, Colombia, or Mexico, and Peru, for example, is going to do probably worse. So, and about the political situation, what we would like to share is that everybody is talking about the uncertainty related to the new governments, all these leftist governments that are new in America in the last years. And well, our point of view is that the news in America, the news in Europe, the news that we receive here in Europe are much worse than reality from a business point of view for Latin America. What I'm trying to say is that for doing business in America, maybe politics aren't so important as economics go through a different path in some way. So if you look, for example, to Peru, where we have received many bad news about their political situation since last November, and they have changed presidents countless times in the last years. But truth is that the economic situation is stable, keeps growing, and our view of the country is that instead of the political situation, the economic environment is still good, and there are still many opportunities, and it's still safe for companies to go to Peru. And the same applies to other countries like Chile, for example. Thanks to all its institutions, which are they have great strength in all these institutions, and somehow they manage to have a strong economy instead of the political situation. Okay, so that's our view. And what opportunities do we have in Latin America? Well, if we look into the data, the European exports remain in positive values from Europe to Latin America, and the trade balance is generally deficient in services for this country. So this reveals also that there are many business opportunities for us in Latin America. And we also like to highlight that there are many opportunities derived from something that is quite in fashion in Europe, like all the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals, everything related to sustainability, environmental management, cultural factors, social factors. All these that we have been working on it in Europe for many years now are now beginning to be demanded in Latin America. So these transversal approaches for the projects make us very competitive in Latin America, and I think we have a lot to bring there from our experience here in Europe. Okay. And about the water sector in Latin America, well, the water is, the previous panelists have already talked a lot about this, but water is has some strategic importance in the region. Instead of the fact that it is the highest availability of fresh water per capita in the world. The problem is that people live where there's no water, and there's water where people don't live. So there are many challenges due to this problem. They have challenges regarding the water in agriculture, in industry, for home supply, ecosystems. All these areas have many challenges in Latin America. So it's quite important to bring innovation because you have to think that Latin America is a region and not developing region. And so we have to do things there differently, faster, cheaper, and more efficiently than we do them here in Europe. So it's quite important to bring innovation there to make things this way. So, and I would also like to highlight that there's a regional water action agenda approved last February. Which has prioritization areas and efforts needed to accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals number 6, which is to guarantee the availability of water and its sustainable management and sanitation for all. So there's supposed to be many projects in the next year according to this agenda. in many working lines, for example, water and sustainable development, water and climate, water and health, water and energy, food and ecosystems. All these type of things are going to be, as I say, in fashion next year. So I believe there are going to be a lot of opportunities for you in all the countries around Latin America. And we, well, first was said, previous panelists about the difficulties to getting into Latin America. We would like to speak about the multilateral market in Latin America. For those who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about projects financed by multilateral institutions like the World Bank, UN, the Inter-American Development Bank, those type of institutions which give financing to Latin American governments. And just to give you some data, last year in 2022, there were nearly 300 tenders in Latin America related to water sector. And well, you have there the distribution, more than 100 in services, nearly 40 in goods. So there's quite a market there for you. And why we highlight this this multilateral market is because it has many advantages for going to Latin America. First of all, the transparency. You may know that in some cases, in some countries especially, transparency is a fiction. So one of the advantages of the multilateral markets is that you have all these rules equal and known for all the countries, and they are transparent. And another important advantage of this approach through multilateral tenders is that there's no need to be there, legally speaking. You don't have to settle your company there. So it's an interesting way to get into the country, try, see how it goes, and maybe if everything is okay, then you can decide to settle. But you can try without settling there. And one important, very important advantage is that in this multilateral market, payments are guaranteed. So there's no need to worry about all these type of worries that many companies that go to Latin America have or ask us about if they're going to receive the payments of their works. So that's why we highlight this market, because there are many opportunities and they have many advantages for you. So I think it's something that you should look into it. Well, there's here I have just some examples of these opportunities in the multilateral market. For example, there's this news about the CAF, which is going to put $4,000 million to promote hydric security in Latin America, which is quite a great amount of money. There's also this project from the European Union cooperating with Latin America, the Latin America Investing Facility, which also has many projects. These are just two examples of all the movement around water in Latin America and the opportunities in the multilateral sector for you, which I repeat again, we think is the best way for you to get into the market in first instance. Okay, and well, this is probably a personal approach, but after being more than 10 years in many countries and having developed many projects all around Latin America, I would like to share some thoughts about how your approach to Latin America should be. Okay, well, first of all is that our knowledge, European knowledge, experience, and innovative solutions are very well valued in Latin America. But it's also so important not to go there as saviors. Okay, Europeans in many cases go there thinking that the Latin Americans don't have nothing, they don't know nothing about anything, and that we want to save them from the, I don't know, from the jungle. And that's quite a bad idea. I have seen this many times from companies that go there, and yes, we have to go there, we have to listen a lot, and we have to try to become partners for Latin American companies and Latin American governments, okay? There's also, of course, I think that this applies for everywhere, but mostly in Latin America, that you have to go with good prices, of course, with a good level of service. Proximity is quite important. Someone may ask about the language. Language is important, obviously, because if here, for example, in Spain, not many people talk in English, less in Latin America, so it's important to have a local partner or people who speak in English in your companies, and sorry, people who speak in Spanish, I say. And of course you have to offer quality. So I believe you have this applies for everywhere in the world, but especially Latin America. I think it's important to have good services with quality and of course good prices. And this one is very important. I think is that in Latin America, they do not always need the most advanced technology. I mean that we sometimes go there with our best solutions, and we have managed to solve problems here in Europe that were so difficult. But truth is that the needs there in many occasions are quite before what we have done here in Europe. So maybe we have to think to adapt our solutions or offerings to what they really need, and not trying to sell them the best we have or the last technology we had, because probably it isn't what they really need. They need probably a more effective solution, or maybe a technology that maybe has some years. It's now a bit old for Europe, but it's cheaper and solves them their problem. Okay. And finally, just to advise that you cannot treat Latin America as a whole. There are many different cultures. A Chilean is totally different from a Peruvian or an Argentinian, just like Europe. Okay, so a Spaniard is totally different from a German or a French, so just like Europe. But many times I think that we make that error to think that they're all the same, and of course they are not all the same, and we have to learn a lot about the market we're going to go into. We have to learn about their culture, how they do things, and just that you cannot generalize your knowledge or your experience in one country to other countries. Okay, and finally, I just to end my presentation, just let you know something about us, who we are and how we are talking, why we are talking about all this. Well, we are a consulting company. We are companies in their internationalization processes, and we have presence in Peru, in Latin America, in Peru, Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. We have developed more than 500 commercial agendas, more than 80 direct trade missions with many companies. More than 50 inverse trade missions. We bring services in international public procurement, strategic consulting, foreign trade promotion, market intelligence, training for internationalization. And we're experts in the multilateral sector. We've been working in this for more than 10 years. And so that's why we know it quite well. And that's why, as I said before, we think there's a quite great opportunity for all of you in this sector. So that's all for me. There you have my data. Anyone who wants know more or maybe want some help to get in there, just don't have a doubt and contact me. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It was really great to know and to have all of these inside tricks on your experience in Latin America. I think we now had a lot of data, a lot of overviews of the business and the political and economic framework in Latin America, and we can now move on to maybe a bit of a more business experience feedback from someone who actually exported there, went there, worked there. So we will now have a presentation by Jose Teixeira from Burnt Planet.
Hi, hello, good morning and good afternoon. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm going to present a little bit of, I'm going to share my screen first, moment. Now you can see the screen.
Yes, perfect, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, I am Key Account Manager at Burnt Planet for Latin America, and also trying to get to the US market, more different approach. But I'm going to speak a little bit about what we do, so you can understand how difficult or easy it is to get to the market. And Boombrain is what we develop for water utilities, for an efficient water management, and then the company itself, Burnt Planet, we are based in San Sebastian. We have the mission to create a better world with the help of technology. Okay, we develop software, and we apply AI, artificial intelligence, to help these water utilities in worldwide, in Latin America, in other parts of the world, solving some problems and get more resilient and efficient. So this, just to put on context, there are people in the smart water management value chain. It's what we are approaching, the smart water management. There are people that are selling hardware, sensors. There are people, companies that are working with data transfer, data storage, and we are only doing analytics. Okay, analytics to help them make the best decision. So this I'm going to speak a little bit more about Burnt Planet and our story, and then how we get to the Latin American market. Burnt Planet was born in the year 2000 and to develop solution software for all type of industry. But in 2007, we started develop a Airlayer and product for a water utility, and we see that we have an opportunity there. And we started in 2013 applying AI, artificial intelligence, for the water sector. And then in 2013, we started developing the solution. And we didn't have our first tries since 2016. 2016, we have the solution tested in Germany and Spain, is our main market, Germany and Spain. And then very important, here, this milestone, in 2017, we received the Horizon 2020 SME Instrument Award with a 1.5 million. So we could invest more in develop the solution and go to the market. So we have our first customer in Spain and Portugal, not just a trial. And in the next year, in 2018, is when we've arrived into Latin America. How we arrived into Latin America? And there is a lot of organization and here in Spain, in Basque Country, and for example, here they have a project Piloto that helps you deploy the technology, and then we had some from the European Union also, the SME program, and we've made some trials in Colombia and in Bolivia, also in Bolivia and in La Paz and in Sucre, and we started just to see, okay, our technology can work in Germany, but also can work in Peru. You have to adapt the solution, of course. And we needed to know how to stay in the market and to go to other markets. The way we've managed to sell into other markets like Costa Rica and Chile, and mainly was through partnership with local companies. So it's very complicated just to, especially in the water sector, just to try to go and sell directly. You can sell directly, of course, into, for example, in this, we sell directly when we have this program of collaboration with which include institutions from European Union, and we can go and sell directly. And normally they have this procurement or tender. So if the solution it's more than 15,000 euros or 20,000 euros, or depend the country, depend the region. For example, in Brazil, I'm trying to get with the solution in Brazil. Every state is different. They have their own. It's almost any state is one country inside Brazil. So it's 27 states, and it's very complicated. It's very different. So the thing that Kevin was saying before, they are not the same. The countries are all have different problems. Different politics is crucial because a lot of water utilities are public, so they have to do this public tenders. You have to participate, and sometimes you have to be a national company to participate there. So we can go through this partnership, and then going to this partnership agreement, we find we've made a distribution agreement, very important, in 2019 with Siemens. So there was our way we could sell our solution mainly worldwide, because Siemens has companies in almost all the countries, not all the countries in the world, but a lot of countries in the world, in Latin America. For example, in Colombia, we've sold through Siemens, but it's a non-exclusive agreement. It's very important because if it was an exclusive agreement, that means we only would sell through Siemens, but it's not that. We can sell through Siemens, or we can sell through other partners in local, in this local market. Or for example, we won, I'm going to speak a little bit more after in the next slide, but we won last year a great tender in Chile. One of the biggest water utility in Chile is one of our biggest customers now. So the experience is going well in Latin America. We're trying to expand, but the thing here is the market is very slow. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. One moment, please. See some awards that we received. You can see we received the Startup European Awards, also COP25. We co-funded with the European Union SME Instrument Program that I told you. Solar Impulse Solution, one of the 1,000 solutions that would improve the world and help save the planet. This Bertrand Picard, Climate Kick, and we are partnering with a lot of different water utilities and private company also to try to get to the market. I'm going to start here a little bit more because, as you can see, we have a customer also in Mexico. And this was through a partnership with a local government here in Spain, Proyecto Piloto. We have this, and the company pays half of the price of the project, water utility in Mexico, and here the government pay the other half. So and it's going great. It's one of the mainly water utility in Colombia and in Mexico, sorry. But what come after this? No, so after they made this project, if they want to proceed with the solution, they will have to put out a public tender. So when they put out this public tender, we will compete with different other companies in the market. So you have to know well the market, know the pricing strategy, and what the customer, and analyze that and have a good partner in that market. Not only good partner because it depends the size of the project. Maybe the company will have to be Siemens, or because they ask for financial a lot of financial security, no? And in Chile, and the experience in Chile was great. Last year, we won 2 projects in Chile, and with competitor from Israel, Portugal, and other countries that was trying to get that project. We won those 2 projects, and it was through a public tender also. We made a POC, a proof of concept, in one of these companies. They tried a solution, but they had to put out this public tender. So I think from our experience, the most important thing is to get access to this public tender, right? So to get to notify that you have this opportunity, and then to have a partner that if they can go and deploy the solution and make the services and everything there. If you have capacity and you have a lot of money and you can go there after one contract like this, okay, of course, but sometimes your company has to be not only locally, but your company has to be has to have a business in the market and some financial that sometimes is more complicated to have if you just start a company in the first year. So partnering is one of our strategy, partnering with local companies to help you sell the solution to this company. As you can see, we got USA, and we don't have any customer there, but it's in one market that we are targeting also. Expect, of course, growing into Latin America. Also, Brazil is the one that we've made some projects in Brazil. We don't have a big customer yet, but we are working again to partner it. We have now 2 partners for 2 different states, and we are keep trying to get more partners, and because we have different solutions inside the software. So this is some reference. As you can see, there's some private companies also. We've partnered also with utilities and directly with these partners can be private companies that are, for example, trying to access to a market. Normally, there is, I don't know who said before that in Bolivia, for example, they don't have money to act, and sometimes the government doesn't have these resources. So what they made this privatization, that the government or the local or the municipality has a part on this management, and then the private company is the one that are going to put the money. So sometimes these private utilities, you can partner with them to get inside this. This is our global leader, a partner that we have, as you can see, from especially regarding water loss. Our solution was to help water utilities and save water. This is a big problem everywhere in the world, but especially in some parts of Latin America. They lose more than 50% and sometimes more than 60 or 70% of all the water they produce. So that's a lot of water that you are producing, or you are taking from the sea and desalinating, and it's not coming to this customer. So it's a huge problem, and sometimes from the political side, it's more cool to stay on the photo with a new plant to produce more water, but if you trying to reduce these water losses, so this is like what we approach. We are almost all of us are engineers, and this is our platform. I'm not going to explain nothing about this platform because it's not the key here. I wanted to speak about our experience in Latin America, and if you have any question, more or less, this is the Boom Brain solution. I can show you a little bit just to get to know what we do inside the company in Boom Brain. but especially we are mainly focusing in applying artificial intelligence. We connect to the data they have. Sometimes they don't have this data. So it's not all the water utilities we have to go in. So there's a job also, a work also in segmentation. So do you have 100 water utilities? Which one of these water utilities could buy what you have? Maybe you will have only 30% of the market, or 30%, for example, in Peru, Serapal could afford to buy our solution. Especially last year, they was about to put out a tender, a huge tender. I think was initiated through the bid or some institution. There was to improve the efficiency of the water network that would need a software similar to what we have. So it's a huge project that I think it's now canceled or something like that. But to go to a project like this in Serapal, for example, you need a partner there, not only a partner there to go as your representative, but that's the where we are working now, to try to see we have all the solution we have. What is the problem the customer has, and what one of these solution maybe we can help them solve this problem. And as Kevin said before, sometimes they don't need the best of Leak Finder, the first module you see on the left. Maybe they need something in Leak Finder, but not with all this integration that you can have, for example, in Germany, right? This is more about more technical issues and security. And our business model, just to finish, is it's a software as a service. So we don't export goods, we export technology. It's going all online. We do all the implementation from Spain and from Spain we do all the implementation. So it's a service. We sell these implementation services, and then they have this recurring fee, yearly recurring fee they will pay every year. So that's how our business model. So just you can put it on context. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for your feedback from your experience. Maybe just before moving to questions and answers, please ask them in the section if you have any, but I'll take this opportunity to thank you all for your presentations, and to thank you because Kevin just said that we needed to, in his previous presentation, needed to adapt to the local context and speak Spanish when we export to Latin America. And today you all made the effort to speak English for the project because it's a European project with enough English as an official language, and we wanted this webinar to be accessible to all and in English. So thank you all for making the effort of speaking English today. I know it wasn't an easy exercise, so thank you very much. Is there any question from the participants? We can answer your question if you put them in the Q&A section. Yep, we have one from Arnaud Brunel to Jose. How do you position your offer compared to local suppliers?
Good question. Here is what it is. Our technology is very new. It's very new. In some markets, they don't. The local supplier is someone that are selling this solution, the solution from our competitor, but they are not from the. Let's talk about Chile, for example, right? In Chile, we didn't have a local supplier that supply the same as we do. But they have this company similar to Boom Planet. They make this solution. They are all over the world. So they have representatives in this country. So that's more. We are competing normally to international. Of course, there is some markets there are companies like us. They are making use of AI, artificial intelligence, applying to the water. But it's not usual to have this Okay, but if I can tell you something else, we are very agile, flexible. We have this startup mindset. We work and try to be very efficient in our, and then we have some key differentiation in our product that would differentiate from the competition. But that's, as it wasn't a technical explanation, it's very complicated to explain this technical differentiation that we have from our competitors.
Thank you. We're waiting for other questions. Maybe in the meantime, I can ask you a question, Jose, but it's also open to anyone that'd like to add an answer to it. It's a question in two sections. The first one would be that, would you say that the business you have in Latin America is mainly done through answering to public tenders? And do you, yeah, you can answer
go ahead.
first, yeah.
I can answer, okay. The big contracts, the contracts that have some return on our accounts, and it's all through tenders.
Mm-hmm. And would you say like it's easy to answer to it from Europe, or would you advise to already have an office in Latin America or already have a good network there and useful contacts to help answering the tender?
To answer the tender, normally you can do almost everything, no matter where you are. Mm-hmm. Because almost all of these they are doing through online. You can do this. You can take all the, but normally you have to be there. I don't know what's the best way, because it will depend on the what the segment you are you selling in. But you have to be there. If you are not there, you have to have somebody there, some partner, to first to get notified that there is an opportunity. When they have this opportunity, your partner, because if you are here, it's very complicated to get notified for all the tenders in Spain, all the tenders in Germany, or all the tenders in Portugal. It's almost impossible to get all this information. So if you have somebody local that is more aware of this opportunity, then you can help and work together with him to make this to try to win this tender or this procurement.
Okay, and maybe Mauricio, would you, I don't know if you have experience, or Kevin or Bram, because you all three of you are in Latin America, would you say that those tenders are really open to European SMEs, or is it sometimes more reserved to Latin American enterprises?
Yes, if in the same direction as Jose mentioned, what happens in Peru, for instance, in the major, the tenders are announced or are launched by public companies, and public companies are very bureaucratic, and they have very contradictory, they're very messy in their rules. It's very bureaucratic process. And one of the aspects they ask, if they, for instance, launch a tender for, let's say, $100,000 or 100,000 euros for a contract, you have to prove that you have already had contracts in the past 5 years to the triple of the value. So you need to prove them, look, I have had contracts for 300,000 euros at least. In some cases, they ask for contracts in Peru itself. So that's already a limit for SME companies to go direct for the water utilities. So my advice is also similar to what Jose said. You need to have a strong local partner or several partners in Peru as an SME. If you go alone for it, you will not have the chance. So in that sense, a good local partner is key to enter the Peruvian market, even for private companies. Even if you want to make a contract, for instance, with the mining companies. Mining companies, they are very strict in certification, so they do not hire any company. The companies they hire, they have to already follow several, they have to have several certifications and to pass through their, let's say, selection process. Again, you need to team up with companies that have already a history of contracting with mining companies.
Thank you. Good to know.
Yes, just to add something more for the multilateral sector, as I said before, it is not a requisite to have a local partner. Anyway, it's quite good to have it. Okay, so you should look for it. But anyway, you can apply to the tender without having a local partner. Anyway, we always strongly recommend to have one, as the other panel said. But legally you don't need it. Okay, so you can apply by yourself.
Okay, thank you for this. So I guess the one advice to keep from this meeting is have a local partner if you want to export in Latin America. Is there any other question from the participants? Last question, what is the average time between first contact and final sales, contract signature? Yes, because decision makers of water utilities tend to be very slow and conservative. So what would be the average time between first contact and final signature of the contract?
It's very complicated, but it's very slow. Very slow. Sometimes it can take a year, 2 years. Then we make the first demo, and maybe you are making this PowerPoint presentation to a technical people that don't decide they have to sell it internally. And for a solution as smart water solution like what we do, you have to like educate. You have to educate this because it's it's when something is quite new. It's not new at all, but it's new for the people that are listening to you, right? This is people that are operative. They are doing their job with their tools they have in the company, and you are coming with a solution that could maybe do this job a little bit faster, but and then help them with some issues. So sometimes it's very complicated to get to this decision maker, you know, to get the opportunity to speak with somebody that really decides, and sometimes they need to hear about your company. Okay, what this company, okay, if you have a reference in this country, do you have a reference in Peru, or you have a reference in Colombia? No, maybe they don't want to hear from you. These people that decides. So I think it's very slow. I was before I was working in this industrial sector. We was making a lot of efforts and proposals, and it's more fast. And when it's public, if it's private, it can go a little bit fast, the water utility. But if it's public, it's very, because it can sometimes it can go with 5 years. I mean, the planet, and I know some public companies that are putting out a tender. They have more than 4 years, and the tender is not out. And then this is elections, and then this is new people in charge, and maybe these people that are in charge doesn't want nothing. So it's very slow. I don't have a medium, but I can tell you it's very slow. It's very slow.
Yes. Sorry. Please, Igor.
No. Just an addition to this. Yes. One advice for those companies who are willing to make business there, or to make collaboration there, use the public fundings from either countries or either EU or development banks, because when you have someone above the actors, you know, the company, the administration there, the companies here. When you have someone above them, you know, with the axe there, you know, go ahead. You have a timetable. You have presented a project with a deadline. You have to do it. Even for us, when you have someone, you know, with the clock there, you know, taking account of the timing, you go faster. You do things a bit faster.
Yes, I just wanted to add to Jose's comment. It all depends on the amount of the tender, how big the tender is. The bigger the tender, the more likely it will take a lot of time to get from the call to the contract. Because there are big players, they're trying to get the tender, and they have their lawyers looking for ways to bring it down if they don't get it. So this process, these big processes, even if you get the contract approved and everything, it can fall again to zero because of some legal aspects that come up and pop up there. Mm-hmm. The other thing is if you have if your solution is really something that is like a hot topic, of that is something very much needed in the market, for instance, in Peru, then you are more likely to find a partner that is having this kind of tenders or that is applying this kind of tenders, the small or the medium-sized tenders. For instance, providers for reverse osmosis. This is like a technology, like more and more is being acquired mainly by private companies, the reverse osmosis. So whatever you can do to improve the technology that is provided to the service in reverse osmosis, this is something that people want to hear, for instance. No? But if you have solutions that are more innovative, like the ones Jose is developing, indeed, you need to educate people, because it's like you're bringing in a Ferrari, but they are just trying to put forward their old Volkswagen, try to make it function. No, I mean, although these are very good cars, but giving, like, we are still talking about very raw and basic technologies that they have to deal with, while you're bringing more sophisticated ones, which in theory will improve their management. And the third aspect is economy. How much does it cost? You are here competing with players from China, India, and other countries which have much cheaper options and enough, I mean, with enough quality to solve the problem they need to solve in that moment. So there are a lot of variables you have to take into account. And again, as Kevin said, although it is legal that you can just apply by yourself, strongly recommended to have local partners to team up with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for your answers. Even though we just said it's slow, it's still feasible. Like, proof being, with Jose Vicente here, had successful experience in Latin America. So you just have to find a good partner and not lose hope in exporting in Latin America.
If I can just give a very concrete response to the question of Arnaud. If we are talking about a small, medium-sized project tender, you have to think about 2 years.
Okay.
This is something I have, by talking with several companies, basically in Expo Agua, I have been talking with several companies and new companies coming in. And in average, I can say from what I have been interacting, is something like 2 years. Some of them get in the first months, the other ones after 2-3 years. This is something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good to know. Thank you.
I wanted to add also, Thelma, in some water utilities, they are allowed to make direct purchase orders. but it has a limit.
Mm-hmm.
Some countries is 15,000 euros, and some countries are 10,000 euros. It will depend on the country, on the state, but they will need to prove why they are buying this purchase directly without public and tender. Sometimes it's because this product is very innovative. They are the only one that have this, so they have the justification. But you can do that also, maybe for a POC, for a trial, so they can try the software.
Mm-hmm.
They want to try the software or the I don't know, the equipment or the machine or something. No, they want to try it to see if it's good for them, and then replicate it. And when they will replicate it, they will put out a tender. But if the project is quite cheap, they can buy directly also.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. You are thanked also by Arnaud, who asked the questions. Very quickly, before taking a group picture of all the panelists, I would like to address the participants. Oh, sorry, it was, well, it's from the beginning. Sorry for that. To address the participant and ask them if I can take 2 minutes to just review today's webinar and answering your form. It's literally 2 minutes, it's 3 questions. So please, if you have time to do so, it will be really helpful for us. And yeah, thank you all. I already thanked the panelists, but I also thank the participants that took part in this webinar. We hope it was useful and that you had information you were looking for. As we said, it is recorded and will be broadcasted through our YouTube channel, so feel free to share it and to review it later also if you want. If you have questions that you did not ask and would like to, you can send us an email. You will have the contacts of all panelists, and you can send us a general email and we will relay the question. I believe that's all. Igor, did you have anything to add, or should we take a group picture and thank everybody for coming?
Just thanks to all the panelists for having time with us, and thank you all the attendees for hearing us. And we will hope to be in the first time the mission to Bolivia next week and the overall of the project. Thank you, everybody.